All right. Yeah, we did that. We got
Well, we
that.
can do our recognitions.
Right, but I think because it is being recorded, just state that you cannot. You're not, we're not opening the meeting.
No, not, but we can do recognition, we can recognize
Yeah,
people.
but if you want to state
So,
that,
at-
Mr. Minna, yeah.
Okay, at this time, we're not going to have the meeting due to the fact that we're waiting for one more director. But we will, can I word this?
Recognize
We will recognize
service.
some employees for now until we get, hopefully we get another quorum, get a quorum. So at this time, can I have, are they here today?
Haiti Cisneros is not here, but I would like to mention her name, but Carmen Garcia is here.
So Haiti Cisneros, in recognition of 30 years of dedicated service, certificate of appreciation.
Haiti is in our commercial department. Haiti started out as a data entry clerk back when everything had to be entered through data entry. You had a data entry department, and she started out there. And she worked her way up to an appraiser, passed her exams, and she's now one of my lead appraisers in the commercial department.
30 years, congratulations. Haiti. And the next certificate of appreciation is for Carmen S. Garcia.
And Miss
Also,
Carmen is here.
30 years of dedicated service. Carmen?
Yeah, we're going to get your picture. Come on, board members, if you'll take a picture.
Absolutely.
Carmen Garcia has been in our personal property department. She's worked commercial. She's now in our deeds and exemptions, and she works our charitable applications and works with religious organizations for their exemptions.
What do you want to see? Right there is fine, just get.
Thank you so much.
Where's Shimon?
Oh, yes.
You're the star. You're the star.
Thank you, Carmen.
I haven't even born yet.
Thank you.
If you want to say anything, you can.
Absolutely.
Very much.
Okay, guys, so.
Mr. Chairman, if we can, while we're waiting for our fifth person, we do have some presentations
Sure.
that don't require any action. And
Okay.
since we do have board members here and our presenters here, if it's all right, I'd like to go ahead and do
Go
that.
right ahead.
We
Yes.
are going to record them so the public can see it, because I think it's very interesting for the public to be able to see also. So
agree.
we'll start off with Ms. Peggy Wardlaw. She is our Wardlaw appraisal
We know
group.
Miss Peggy.
Yeah.
She's famous here.
Yeah. We wanted her to come in and give you an update on their portion.
All right. So we do the utility and industrial appraisals for the El Paso Appraisal District, and we're really excited to be here. And I just wanted to give you a little overview of where we are and what we're doing. So in a year-to-year comparison, we've had about the same $4 billion or so in value that we appraise. And in last year, we in fact, I'm just going to go into this a little bit about our notices. So we were requested at the appraisal district's request, they said, would you send over the notice values in smaller batches so that we can send them out in smaller batches, we get the clock running quicker, and it kind of makes it more efficient. And we have a chance to look at the values in more detail. So last year, we did 5 different batches of notices in those percentages, as you can see. And so this year, we're going to do the same thing. And we've liked it so well, and the districts liked it so well, we're going to do it in our other appraisal districts and see how that works for them as well. So I just wanted to mention that. So this is just an overview of the certified values that have been by entity. And so you can see that those values, like Fabens, for example, has gone up considerably over the period that we've been doing this. And most of the school districts have had fairly large increases in values over the last 6 years, I guess.
But some have had reductions?
Let me see.
Anthony has had a reduction?
Not since,
Well, 20 to 21.
yes, there was a small decrease in Anthony for that year. And in 2015, it was higher, and I'm not sure why. In
Well,
2014,
EPISD
it
looks like
was
they went down a lot.
21 million, I guess. Is that what that says?
They
I
all
can't-
went down. Fabens went down.
So,
So is that uniform throughout the state? That you've had reductions in all these school districts?
what happened
oil and
was a
gas.
result of COVID.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, that's right, because the COVID.
I mean, Socorro went down substantially and.
Well, remember, these are
A lot of-
industrial properties that were probably closed down during COVID, didn't produce as much, lost workers.
But we're not talking about personal property, we're talking about
No.
real estate.
We're talking
talking
personal
real
property.
estate.
Oh, so
Not
you're
real
not
estate.
talking,
No.
we're talking both, real
no, we're
estate.
talking not real estate.
So
personal
just
property.
personal
It's
property.
just personal
All
property.
right.
I'm looking
I
at
get
this,
it.
we went down $60,000 or.
Really?
Or
No, it's
60 million.
100,000.
A lot of this is inventory value. So,
But how could that be when we're building schools?
Well, it's,
no.
Socorro, I'm talking about.
this is strictly on the personal property. On your high-end industrials, your pipelines. So you didn't have the gas coming through. And
got you.
And then in like EPISD, it's the refinery.
got you.
You didn't have the oil.
I think
production.
when you said it was just personal property, I understand that.
Yeah,
I just
but
didn't
it's-
understand it as.
Right. It was the 2021 was the year after COVID. We didn't adjust it in 2020, but in 2021, we had to adjust those larger industrials. Manufacturing plants were closed
So
or they
that
were not
should go up for
producing.
Socorro because of.
In 2022,
Amazon.
we should see some higher values.
Your number on your
Amazon.
Sletta is off for 2020. You're missing a digit because it couldn't have gone from 618 to 57 million.
Where are we?
Where are these?
If you look at the very bottom line, the next
No, you're right.
2020, you're off by a digit.
Yes, no, the
Good eye,
2020's off by a digit. You're
I'm
absolutely
gonna hire
right.
him.
That's
You're absolutely
not
right.
good.
Yeah, no, it didn't go down by
I was going to
600
say, so you
million.
need to make that adjustment.
Thank you,
Is
I
it
will.
possible for us to get a copy of this page?
Yes. When all of this is over, we'll make sure that we have a copy of all the presentations and we can email them to them
I
if you'd
still
like
don't see
them.
it
And,
here.
hey, I'll make the change before we send it to you.
Please. If not, I'm going to bring it up again. So to get me off your back, just get that
I'll make
change.
the change before it,
Yeah, it just,
before I send it to you.
but I understand if this is personal property.
This is, and we say personal, and a lot of people don't understand that.
No,
but
no, I
it's-
get it.
But it's
It's not real
mostly,
estate.
like she says, pipelines, the electric company, the, all the big manufacturing. I went out to Werner today with all the ladders. So some of this is influenced directly by inventory. So if a company has less inventory, which can be tens of millions of dollars, and that's just something that fluctuates year to year.
Yeah, but during COVID, it seems to me they would have had a stockpile of inventory.
No, they didn't.
Instead, they may have cut back, they may have curtailed on their manufacturing,
They did,
which
yeah.
brought down their inventory.
And then getting the materials, the raw materials, they were
Getting
having.
material could have been an
yes,
issue.
Yeah. I mean, we were having trouble getting just toilet paper. So you can imagine a big manufacturing was having trouble getting, materials.
All right.
So each year we go out and we do inspections of all the facilities, and this year we did on-site inspections. Last year we were doing almost entirely virtual inspections because these manufacturing facilities were not allowing
Right.
anybody on site. And so this year there were a lot of COVID protocols, but we did mostly on-site inspections of almost all of the facilities.
And they notify us and our staff does go with them.
We do.
So
So, and because the law allows us to get into these facilities, because for the personal property, a lot of times the real estate appraisers like that, so they can go along and do their inspections as well.
How many appraisal districts is Ward Law?
11.
Are we among the largest, or we're just in the mix?
You're among the largest. I mean, we have Denton's another large one. Webb County's another large one that we do a lot.
Are we
of.
the only one in El Paso for you?
You're the only El Paso appraisal district that we
like
appraise.
that.
We're the only, we are the only one.
I love it.
So, my husband and I actually started the company back in 1985, And from the very beginning, our top priority has been customer service, because we really believe that one of the keys is customer service to the board and to the taxing entities to make a fair value so that your homeowners don't pay
Right, that's.
more than they should
that's
be paying.
exactly right.
So I've really felt a heartfelt connection to this, because a lot of people don't like taxes. But if we don't do our job and appraise the larger companies that we appraise at an actual good value, because almost all of them have tax reps, so you got to fight for it. And if we don't do our job, then that tax is passed on to your homeowners. So that's our total commitment to your taxing entities. But the other thing is, we also have a commitment to the taxpayers to explain things, to be nice to them, and to try to work with them and try to arrive at a fair, high value.
If somebody on a school board asked, I'm not on a school board, so I can ask the question, but if somebody on a school board asked you for the top 10 companies that you assessed in their district, if Socorro wanted to know who were the top.
We can give you that.
Can you give it to
Yeah,
me?
we do that every year,
I
top
would
10
suggest you
taxpayers.
ask for that.
Oh, I already did.
Because I want to, and I'd like to see what the differences are from
Oh.
year to year.
We can give you the top 10 total, of
The
all the
city.
properties within the different school districts and county and
But
city.
if I were on a school district, I'd
Boardwalk
wanna
can
know.
give you their top 10 clients.
Yeah, we
Or
can.
their top 10 properties that they appraise. But yeah, we do that every year. We give them the top 10.
All right.
All of the entities get a top 10.
The other thing that we do is, when we do inspections, when we see something that's coming up that might be a big difference, like back a few years ago, Boeing was closing. So one of the first things we did was inform the appraisal district, who then informed the school district that they were going to close the following year, and so to get them ready for any big changes in their taxable value. So one of the other things we do is the property value study every year, and we make sure that all of our values are done correctly. They're done by IAAO standards, and we do unit appraisals that the state then looks at, and then we make sure that we do a good job and that we're within the value intervals for your school districts.
I have a question for you. Is Fort Bliss taxed?
It is not.
Wait,
Well, okay, private.
that's my question. We do pick up the personal property for private businesses on Fort Bliss. An example would be a Burger King, a Kentucky Fried Chicken, anything that that belongs to someone else. We will pick up the personal property. The real estate is actually, even though it may have the trademarks of, say, a Burger King, it is owned by the military. And so we're not allowed to pick up
So
the
if-
real estate.
So, for example, if it's inside the PX, see, I'm a vet, so I go in there. So if
The PX we can't touch, because the PX has a special agreement. So we've tried to pick up the stuff within the PX,
Right.
but it's a little bit different than the PX. But you're freestanding, like there's a little shopping center out there
Right.
that has a bar and a couple of different shops. We can pick up those shops, the personal property, and we actually send an appraiser out there
Oh, I didn't know that.
to do that, yeah.
But they don't pay property taxes.
Federal government.
Because the government doesn't pay it, so they don't charge it to
I think
those
they trump
stores.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we do, the individuals, like whoever the franchisee is for, say, McDonald's, will get assessed for the equipment and the inventory that's in the McDonald's. It's not a lot of value. I think it's a little over $1.5 million that we pick up in value out there, but we do.
Sorry, we didn't want to.
No, it's a good question. Thank you.
This is just a little more about the property value study. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the two largest taxpayers, El Paso Electric. We've worked closely with them over the last 6 years to try to come up with a good value for them. And they're now on the state study. And El Paso Electric has been extremely hesitant to provide information for their appraisals. So we are forced to use publicly available data, which essentially is their FERC report, and then back into how much of that value is in El Paso County. And that's what we've done. And last year, we came up with an overall increase of 7%. And one thing I wanted to point out to y'all that we've done, we have separated their generation from their distribution on the account side. Now, I'm sure you're very familiar, distribution is scattered over all of the different entities and the school districts and all, while generation is in the two different plants and is strictly in those two different jurisdictions. And we've done that because from a jurisdictional standpoint, if they're not adding any generation, those values should not be increasing. And the way it was handled before we took over your contract, it was all bundled together. So if there was any increase, it was the same increase over the whole thing. So actually, last year, each of your school districts overall got an increase of over 20%. Not exactly, but it was different for different school districts. But overall, that increase was 20% because they didn't make any new generation. They didn't construct any new generation. So that account decreased, which from an appraisal standpoint is appropriate because it was depreciated. So that all of their capital increase was in their distribution plant, and we applied that increase to the distribution plant, which is over the whole of the district.
But the net effect to the districts was an increase. Also, overall, was the net effect an increase also? No.
It wasn't necessarily a net increase to every single jurisdiction.
Right.
But El Paso Electric, whatever percentage of their total distribution was in a particular jurisdiction, increased substantially. So it just depended. Some entities have more and some entities have less.
But at least now the individual entities are getting something from that,
right.
yeah.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
It's a lot more itemized, individualized based on the
It is.
district.
It's a lot more individualized, and as an appraiser, it makes a lot more sense.
Right.
That the different entities should get that increase. So for 2022, there have not been any major capital improvements, but to the extent that there have been improvements to distribution, of which there have been some, that will go directly to the distribution account. There haven't been any more generation investments, but they've received a permit now for a $160 million gas-fired power plant to replace several aging units out at Newman. And some of those units have been around since the 1970s. So they're really, really old. So that's going to be kind of a trade-off because we certainly have a value on those old units. So we're not going to have an increase when that comes online of exactly 160 million, but it's going to be some kind of increase because we're going to take some of the value off and add on the new value when that comes online. And we really are expecting some construction to begin this year. For Western Refining, we work closely with them to come to a value agreement for 2021. And they agreed informally to a value of over $437 million, which, meant no litigation to your.
What was it in 2020? Was that an increase? Was that a decrease?
It was a slight increase. It was about flat overall. And we did our inspection for 2022, and they have had no new additions, and they've had some trouble. Their power went out. They've been shut down for shorter periods of time. They've had some issues with some of their subcontractors and some of the other stuff they need. So they've had several problems. We're in the process of completing our 2022 appraisal, but we do expect an overall increase because the value of crude has increased. And they have substantial amounts of inventory. and that a value of that inventory has increased. So we're hoping that's going to offset any difference in the value of the refinery. And we have an informal conference scheduled with the Marathon representative in April with the chief appraiser, and we'll see. We'll have our appraisal finished, and we'll sit down and
Duke it out.
duke it
Yes.
out.
I know.
Are there any questions? I'll mention about Amazon. We've been out, as I'm sure you're all well aware, they're building a huge new facility, state of the art. I believe that the real estate value has already been settled. As far as the personal property, all the robots and everything like that, we haven't done that yet. What we are currently doing is looking at similar facilities in other locations, so we can see what value those districts have on that personal property. And we're waiting on their rendition, so they tell us what they paid for it, and then.
And they have until April 15th to submit that, so it'll probably be May.
And we've been in contact with the Amazon tax rep and have requested that they please send that to us as soon as possible. He has said hopefully in March. So we got our fingers crossed, because that's another big one that we'd really like to get settled as soon as possible.
But there are other districts where there are Amazon
Oh, yes.
Yes,
distribution
there are.
facilities.
Yes.
We have communication with them.
Yeah,
Yes.
sure.
So all we need to do is, at least they'll give you a base upon
Yeah.
which to start.
Well, and it wasn't 100% ready on January 1st. It was mostly ready. So we're going to see about that part.
Well, and they did apply for a September 1 inventory date instead of a January 1, so we have to go back to September. Well, of course, they weren't open then. you know,
Right,
so-
right. That's
So that
why
is,
they're
yeah.
doing that.
But that's all allowed under the tax
Right,
code,
no,
so.
I got it.
They know it, they're smart.
Yeah, but what, the good thing about that is Peggy and her group and our group have developed a communication, conversation with the tax people from Amazon, just like we did with the refinery from Marathon. And we found that if we can just start talking now, usually we can come to some kind of an agreement that we can settle on and move forward and not have that issue of litigation overhead. Plus, we're done, and they're done too, and they move on. Amazon is like Marathon. They have so many things throughout the country, throughout the world. They don't need to, spend a lot of time and money on this. So we are developing a conversation, a business relationship with them.
Is this only personal property? Is that all the ward law does?
We do the real
only-
estate, right.
We do the real
We
estate
do the
in-house.
real estate.
So this is
Now,
just personal
when it
property.
comes to the refinery, because it's all a refinery, it's all together. We look at the numbers together. We'll put a value on the land, but we look at it as a refinery when we set the value, so we work on that together, but.
But even if there's a best use on the property, we still view it as a refinery because they're using it.
Right.
So if they're on the freeway and it's a mile of freeway, we still see it as just as a refinery, not as what the potential could be.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
So we do personal property, and we also do utilities. So we do
And utilities, yeah,
all
Paso.
the electrics
Pipelines.
and the phones and the pipelines and the gas distribution and.
Since they do represent so many counties that do have oil and gas, they can get that information a lot simpler, a lot faster than we can. And I'll be honest with you, I've sat in on several meetings where the state is telling the tax agents and the appraisal districts that are fortunate to have oil and gas, the multi-page formula that they use to calculate the relationship of that. And I'm like, I'm glad we don't have it. It's quite a undertaking.
It's a headache probably.
Yeah.
We have a lot of wind turbines in our jurisdiction. I don't think we do.
We don't.
You don't have any, do you?
A few private,
Dickpo
has one, and then there's a wind turbine on a housing development right there by the Coliseum. They have wind turbines, so there's a few here and there, but we just
I'm
don't.
kind of
That's not
surprised you don't. I don't know, maybe it's something about ERCOT or not, or y'all are not in ERCOT. I don't know.
I
'Cause
don't know why
do
we-
a bunch of wind farms, and they are just growing like
Mm-hmm.
weeds, and solar farms too, and
Solar,
now
I was gonna
battery
say solar.
farms. I mean, y'all have a lot of wind.
I know.
And a lot of sun. We do 2 solar farms here,
In our county.
Yes.
but no wind farms, so. any questions? Okay.
Peggy, thank you so much for coming in and
Okay,
giving us an
thank you.
update. And you'll see Peggy at the end of the protest season, so, yeah.
We'll hear the results.
I'll see if we can't bring them up.
Just fix the number.
Okay, since we still don't have quorum, is it all right if we go with our department presentations?
Yes, by all means.
They've worked really hard. Their presentations are amazing. We're going to start with the business personal property. Eric Wright is the manager of the business personal property. He's fairly a new manager, but he's not a new employee. And then we'll have the commercial property. Michelle Martinez is the manager for that. And then Crystal Pickett will follow up with a residential department update. So, Eric, you're on.
Thank you very much. You'll have to excuse me, the allergies today got me a little hoarse. But my name is Eric Wright. I've been with the district for about 14 years, and I am the business personal property manager. To kind of go over a little bit about what we do, IAAO has stated that the extent to which taxable personal property can be assessed depends upon its discovery. We all know one of the biggest issues with personal property is it's highly mobile. So from one year to the next, it could be one part of town and the next. And that's really one of the biggest struggles that we deal with. So in our discovery phase, which is usually in August after we do our certification, up through most of February, we're trying to canvass out the entire county. Even though we're only required to do so every 3 years, we do try to hit every account we have yearly. Hopefully this means we pick up anybody who's moved, anybody who's closed, any new businesses. As we're going through, we identify those new businesses and we interview the owners to determine the nature of the business and gather as much data as possible to facilitate an appraisal. We do identify any closed businesses and delete them from the roll. We do follow-up calls, whether that's Google or assume names, see if maybe they've filed under a new location, and try to make sure we don't lose any value. We do, even though a business may seem like it hasn't changed, it's got the same name up there, they've been in business for several years, we do also try to verify that the ownership hasn't changed. In some instances, the same business, even though the name's not changing, the ownership's changing and changing and changing. A good example of that is the hair salons. They trade hands pretty frequently. Some of our sources for discovery, we use the newspapers, El Paso Inc., the Business Times section. El Paso Inc. publishes a yearly report on their top businesses in El Paso. We do run through that each year and make sure we're not missing any of the heavy hitters. City permits, general internet searches, commercial, lets their appraisers know if they come across anything new in the field during their inspections to give us a heads up. It is a team effort in that regard. The warehouses in El Paso do give us warehouse listings. So even though businesses have their own sites that they're working out of, the warehouses will tell us who's maybe renting out storage units, in which case maybe there's some extra equipment and machinery that needs to be added to the roll for other businesses. After that, we do have the El Paso airport listings. Maybe that's jets, personal aircrafts that may be used for business. And then Delgado, Acosta, Spencer, Linebarger, and Bettas, they do come through and help us with prior year stuff in the event they've maybe closed, they've moved, and we missed it, and they're picking them up on delinquent taxes. For field work, we generate our property record cards, and we pretty much sort them by street. As I mentioned, we do try to do every street every year, and then we assign specific streets and areas to appraisers to go through. We do go door to door, and we do our best to get in there and speak to an employee or a property owner and try to make sure that everything looks good. Over the last couple of years, we've seen a steady incline until 2021. We lost a little bit. We picked up some new ones, but COVID saw some of the accounts kind of close off. For 2022, currently, as it stands, we do have over 26,000, so we are seeing an increase still. We'll see how that pans out after the protest and all of that. Our appraised value in billions, again, you see that general uptick until 21, where we had businesses kind of shut down for that year. Again, for 2022, we're picking up more businesses, and preliminaries are in the general range from 2019 to 2020. So we are seeing a slight increase currently.
And just to, let me interject a minute. Our appraisal date is January 1. So in the year 2020, we did not take COVID into consideration. That was taken into consideration in 2021. So that's why you'll see that difference, because of that January 1 date. I'm sorry, Eric, go ahead.
No, that's not a problem. After we do our discovery, we try to buckle down and go through our renditions. Okay, the property tax code requires a person to render all tangible personal property used for production of income that the person owns or that person manages or controls as a fiduciary on January 1. Essentially, it's a report all business owners give to us, and it should state, here's everything I owned, furniture, machinery, vehicles, signage, computers, whatever it may be. This is what I had in my business. They should give us original cost, year of acquisition, and we use that to set those values. It should be pretty straightforward. Property owners do have between January 1st and April 15th, unless they do give us a written request, in which case we extend out their deadline until May 15th. This is one of the primary methods for valuing properties, and it can be the most reliable because it's coming straight from the property owner. The Property Tax Code Section 2312 allows the owner of inventory to have it appraised at its market value as of September 1 of the preceding tax year. I won't get too much into that. We already kind of touched based on it, but the biggest one that we have coming up this year is going to be Amazon. Renditions per year. You'll see we're in the ballpark between 15 and 16,000 each year since 2017. The interesting thing about our renditions is they don't come in a nice steady stream. Property owners have from January 1st up through potentially May 15th to file timely. But you'll notice between January and March, we only receive about 25%. Most of which, as you can guess, come in on the deadline. You may or may not know that we start doing hearings in May. So we do everything we can to process those values as quickly as we can so we can get in the clock before certification. So 10,000, 12,000 accounts we have to work for certification to try to make sure everybody's values are set. It gets pretty hectic. Apart from the renditions, we do have additional work that come in the way of Freeport, vehicle allocations, and then the special inventory monthly reports. As you can imagine, get some of our appraisers feeling a little hectic. Okay. Sometimes we get simpler reports that list out, maybe for a mom and pop shop, not a whole lot in there. Other times we have pages of reports with hundreds of assets. Thankfully, over the past couple of years, we've worked with a lot of these companies to get Excel sheets instead of papers, because we did used to only get them as paper. So, a similar rendition to this would have taken our most experienced appraiser approximately 2.5 days to work through before any workflow evaluations had been done. Our IT and research departments created a TDC Finder program, which helps take those Excel sheets, read the situs address, and tell us what TDC it's in. A TDC tells us your taxing jurisdictions have the ability to tax that value. So instead of pulling up an address, finding the real account, and pulling each and every one of your entities and assigning it to the account, IT and research made it so that, hey, it'll run through and pull that out for us, saving us a lot of time, okay, and making sure that you guys are able to essentially tax the appropriate assets for each business. The commercial department manager shared with us an Excel spreadsheet that populated a column with proper depreciation factors and calculates out depreciated values on those assets. So it took something where we had to do it by hand all the time across, find all the entities, get the cost, go to a table, look up your depreciated values, put it in the system, to let's run through this, make sure everything lines up. And now instead of 2.5 days, it takes between 45 minutes to an hour to process those larger renditions. So while we may not have the biggest staff, we do work with what we have, and we keep pushing and pushing and pushing. This leads us to feel a little bit more relaxed on some of those bigger projects, but of course there's still plenty of work to get done. As we move into our equalization phase, that's going to be through May and July. Sometimes you'll hear it called the appeals, protest, or hearing phase. As a result of the rendition process, protests for business personal properties do not, come about as much, because the property owner gets the option to tell us, like, hey, this is what my value is. Assuming they're giving us good renditions, their value is going to be essentially what they're telling us. So you'll see right now that our protest counts are pretty low compared to what you might find in the other departments. A lot of what we get in our protests are going to be for businesses that closed after the appraiser field review. Maybe we're out there in September running through. Maybe they left in November. With something like that, of course, they weren't there January 1, so we're going to have to remove them from the roll. That's the majority of our protests. This is just a quick rundown. You'll see from 2017 to 2021, we range between 2,800 protests up to 3,600. On our range, we settle informally, so we don't even go to the board on anywhere from 40% to 70% of our protests and personal property. It comes down to if they're willing to give us the rendition, give us what we need, we'll settle it and make sure we're not wasting any time upstairs.
One of the biggest conflicts we have is a new business wants to depreciate the same accounting, the way accounting does, down to a zero value. Well, this is ad valorem taxes, so there's still value in the business. So we don't zero anything out. So a lot of times that's the biggest contention why they want to go before the ARB is they don't like the fact that we still keep a 20 or 30 or 40%, or we depreciate slower than what their accountant does. But that's for a business purpose. It's not for a ad valorem tax purpose. So that seems to be that plus the fact that something closed after we went by. Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Eric? Anything you want to?
I guess, what kind of outreach is done during January, February, March to try to get people to turn them in earlier rather than in April?
Over the last couple of years, there's been a real push to actually mail out the renditions to all property owners sooner and sooner and sooner. This year, if I'm not mistaken, we sent those out January 6th or 7th to give them the most time to actually be notified, like, hey, here's your rendition, let's get it out there. Whenever we're doing the field checks, though, in between August and February, we do leave business cards, we do leave blank renditions, we do try to communicate with property owners, hey, this is what you need to do so that your valuation is proper and what you're expecting it to be. So that's what we do on more or less the yearly basis.
Yeah, because I was thinking more like almost a succinct way of saying we want to give you the best value that we can get. If you get it in earlier, then we could do better or something along those lines where, like, help us help you or something like that.
Yeah. When we go out and visit a new business, most of the time new businesses don't know about property taxes. They say, I've already got my license. So we spend a lot of time in explaining that to them, the process. And at that time, we tell them the sooner you get it in, the sooner we can work the numbers and you'll get a notice so you can see if it's what you agree to. Businesses that have been in the business for a while, they know what the process is and they're going to wait till the end because they know they can because they're working on their income tax and that's a priority to them. Their IRS is a priority. We've done community outreach. I've gone to business organizations to talk. And they're like, okay, but the tax code allows them to go to the 15th. And so they do tend to wait till that date. Yeah. All right. The next one, thank you, Eric. Thank you very much. The next one we have is Michelle Martinez. She's the manager of the commercial department. And we wanted to just give you an update as to what all they do and a history of some of the information. Thank you, Dr. Acevedo. That was a good question. It's a good thing to keep in mind.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Yes? Yes? Okay. Because
Kind of
sometimes
speak
I'm
into the
accused of
mic
not
and we
being
can-
speaking loud enough.
Yeah.
Does this
Yeah,
carry?
speak into the mic. We can hear you a
Okay.
little bit better. There
All
you
right,
go.
great. Good evening. My name is Michelle Martinez, and I've had the honor to work here for 19 years and have been the manager in the commercial department for the last 8. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the unique challenges we face in the commercial department and the strategies that we use to overcome them. So there are about 24,000 commercial accounts totaling $21 billion in value, $15.6 billion if you exclude any of the exempt properties. Commercial properties are non-residential and commercially zoned real estate accounts. Generally, the values are higher on a per property basis, and we use the income approach on about 5,500 accounts. And this is a breakdown of the major types of properties that we appraise on income. So I would include apartments, hotels, offices, warehouses, and retail, among others. Okay, so the income approach requires comparable data that can be pretty hard to come by given that Texas is a non-disclosure state. All commercial staff is trained to interview property owners and tenants in the field to shore up our information. And this, while this is a good practice, it is time-consuming and has varying degrees of success. For the most consistent source of income and sales information, we use paid subscriptions. The examples of which are going to be your CoStar, TREP, Real Capital Analytics, and Axiometrics for the apartment information. So identifying new construction is a major concern for our department. So permits are one way to identify new buildings. The municipalities that issue permits share information with us, and it's entered into our database PACS. This graph shows the major permit info from our databases over the last 3 years, and you can see that there is a decrease. The dark blue here on the bottom is the new buildings, and then the light blue right above it is additions, and then above that is commercial finish out. And then this one is new commercial shells. And so overall, the permits have decreased, but you can see that between 2020 and 2021, it's relatively even on the new buildings. But even in years where the permits decrease, the number of actual field checks that we conduct stays relatively the same because we are still required by MAPS, which is through the state, to visit every property at least once every 6 years. So commercial properties can vary from a simple kit warehouse all the way to something as large as a Fountains at Farrah or an Amazon. And even though we run an income approach on those 5,500 accounts, we still have to calculate a cost value on everything. And in order to calculate an appropriate cost value, we need to record all of the improvements to the land, and this includes any asphalt, concrete, light standards, elevators, it goes on and on. So sometimes the layout of a property is not straightforward, and although we try to get the plans from the property owner of the municipality, it's not always possible. So we are able to measure most properties in the field. When we can't, pictometry is a tool that we use that is available to us. As long as pictometry images are up to date, we can get very accurate estimates of the measurements of the building. We also use pictometry to discover new improvements that were built without a permit. So this is an example of the complexity that you can kind of see in a commercial property. You know, it's not something that can be done, you know, in a few minutes for sure. So settling ARB protests is another challenge for the commercial department, as almost 50% of the non-exempt properties are represented by an agent. So these agents handle the ARB hearings for the property owners. Most of these agents have several years' experience working commercial properties and working in multiple counties. Commercial staff needs to be knowledgeable to be able to adequately filter through the arguments and assumptions that are presented by these agents. In 2021, almost $10 billion in commercial value was timely protested, and the prior year that number was almost $16 billion for 2020. The average per property value protested for 2021 was over $1 million. Right here. Here are the results for the commercial protests during the 2021 ARB season. We had almost 7,000 protests there on commercial properties, and almost 1,400 of them, 1,385, were settled informally. Over 2,000 were resolved using or by top line, and top line was new to us for 2021. It is an agreement to disagree, one could call it. It allows the property owner to continue on to litigation if they so choose, but it dispenses with the hearing process, and it may or may not result in a value change depending on, you know, if the Central Appraisal District is willing to offer a change. Top-line agreements can be signed and processed at the ARB in large batches, and that helps the CAD reach the certified value more quickly. Okay, so with the complexity of the field work to the high stakes at the ARB, it's imperative that commercial staff be well prepared for the challenges that they face. The training facilitator, Haiti, which is she was out ill. She wanted to be here today, but the one who was here for 30 years. She's the training facilitator in my department. She and I have created a structured 8-week training for all new hires to the commercial department. This is supplemental to the excellent training that's already provided by the CAD. But during this training, we touch on many subjects from the history of the CADs in Texas, ethics, open meetings, different approaches to value, field procedures, and navigating our database. And as with anything, it continues to be a work in progress, but training certainly has come a long way, and new staff is hitting their stride much quicker than they did before. So before I let you go, I'll show you some projects that are new and ongoing for 2022. This is the Amazon located at 12101 Emerald Pass. Is going to be, we have it as completed for 2022. We added a little bit to the roll for 2021, but it's now the full value. I worked with the tax manager at Amazon, and we settled the property for 2022 already, so we don't have to worry about it going to hearing and going to litigation. The entities that this property is in is going to be your county, your Socorro ISD, and your Paso del Este MUD among your EPCC and community college. This is the El Paso Logistics Park, located off of Joe Battle. This is also in the Socorro ISD and City of El Paso, among the other entities. Okay, this is the district at Pelicano. This is also this is in Socorro ISD, Lower Valley Water District, and let's see, I think that's it. Okay, this is the retreat at Horizon Hills. This is some apartments also. Located off of East Lake. If you can see East Lake Rojas, or there's East Lake, and so and there's our friend Amazon. So it's right here off of close to the Amazon. This is going to be Socorro ISD and Emergency Service District Number 1 and Lower Valley Water. And this is the Alamo Draft House, also Socorro ISD.
Good place to go watch a movie.
Got a lot of growth. And this is the Connective Fitness Club. This is in El Paso Independent and City of El Paso. And then we've got a new larger warehouse in the Pan American area. This is Zaragoza and Americas. And this is in the city and Isleta ISD.
Didn't get that one.
Yeah. And we've got Millionaire. This is a, yeah. This is in El Paso ISD in the City of El Paso. So those are the, bigger projects that we worked on for 2022.
What about
And-
that building, Region 19 by the airport? Is that one complete or not yet?
It's complete,
complete.
it's exempt.
Is
But
it?
not on the 1st of January.
No,
It only is complete for this year, not for last year.
yeah, yeah.
But it's not taxable. I mean, it's
No, it's not.
Region 19. But how about like the new shopping center that Jerry's building way out on the east side? I mean, that's certainly all new construction.
The one near Amazon?
Uh-huh.
Yes, that's definitely, a large portion of it was new for 2021.
Right.
For
And some of
2020,
it was built last
yeah,
year.
for 2022, we're looking at just the filling in of the pad sites and stuff, so it's not, a big, like a big bulky value. It's, it's still, there's still a lot of value there, but most of that large new construction was for last year.
Same thing with Westtown. on the
Yeah, the
west.
one you did on the
We'll
west.
get the majority of it, then as they finish out or fill in the spots, then so each year it'll add a little more value. And of course, it adds more personal property too, as you get a shop in there, then you get their inventory and their assets. So that it kind of adds to the role for a few years.
This is very interesting stuff. I love it.
So,
Yeah.
so CoStar, in my opinion, isn't a particularly good place because, I mean, they call us all the time and they ask. I mean, I'm trying to remember, there's a better place that,
We use several, we use LoopNet.
that's the
We
one.
use
LoopNet's
LoopNet.
a lot better than CoStar.
We use a lot of them, and then we look to see, because they're all different. I mean,
Totally.
look up something on Zillow, and it's going to be
No,
different than what it
Zillow's
is.
worthless.
So,
But
we.
LoopNet
yeah.
is real. I
Yeah.
mean, that's, properties are offered for sale. I mean,
Yeah.
LoopNet's true
We use
values.
LoopNet,
But CoStar's just,
well, it's a tool.
Shot in the dark.
It's another tool.
but LoopNet is very good. I didn't see you list them, but they're very, very good.
CoStar and LoopNet are together. LoopNet we do go to the website. It is free, so
Right.
we definitely do use.
And it's
LoopNet.
accurate because it's out there.
Yes, and then if CoStar is calling you, they're probably trying to verify some information, which is a phone call that we didn't have to make if they're able to get that confirmation.
But I got to tell you, as owners, we don't give much information to CoStar. I mean,
Yeah.
they call all the time.
Yeah.
You don't give
LoopNet
it.
is true values because they're out there. They're actually trying to sell that stuff. And then local brokers like RJL have their own websites where they'll tell you. It's hard to protest a value when you're offering it up for sale. Now, you can protest it to a degree, but you can't say it's worth half that if you've got it out there.
We
for
use a
sale.
lot of the local realtors will get vacancy rates, because they'll have that, what is the vacancy of warehouses or the
Right.
standard rents. So we do look at a lot of the websites. And there are some publications by some of the local realtors like RJL and others that will get that information. And so by hook or crook, wherever we can get it.
And they're
you
going
know?
to they're going to make you pull teeth to try to
Yeah,
get
yeah.
information. But LoopNet is a wide open and available free site, and it's usually pretty accurate.
We've got, I've got a staff person who visits it every 2 weeks and downloads the information from LoopNet. Yes.
We also have, well, that's for residential. We have, I was going to say, there's another site we use, but it's more for residential. That,
Realtor.com.
yeah.
But honestly, nobody pays much attention to CoStar. I mean, I got to be honest with you, we just don't.
It's just
It's
we
a
use everything
tool.
that's out there, and then it's up to us to verify and determine which one, yeah. Because inevitably, we'll have somebody from the other side that will use CoStar in their protest, so we need to be able to say, well, we looked at it and we didn't feel
Right, no,
because
you
of,
said-
yeah.
Got to cover
Thank
the
you,
base.
Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next one we have is Crystal Pickett. We saved the best for last. I don't know. She's our residential manager and is going to give you a little heads up on what's happening residentially because, guys, throughout the whole state of Texas, residential, the market is still going crazy. And we just had an email that went out from all the different districts, appraisal districts, and you're averaging anywhere from 15% of an increase to up as high as 49% of an increase. I think Williamson put out something yesterday, almost 50% increase in market value from last year to this year. We're averaging anywhere from 18 to 20 up to 25, and of course, maybe even higher in some areas, so. Crystal, I'm sorry, I'm taking your
No, it's
thunder.
okay.
Go right
Go for
ahead.
it. No, do your thing.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so my name is Crystal Pickett. I've been here for 23 years, residential manager. So I'm going to go ahead and start showing you what is residential. Residential is anywhere from a mobile home to a tract house to condos to custom homes.
There's my home.
Now, if you look really close down there, there's somebody measuring. I'm just kidding. Just trying to lighten the mood, guys. We also do agriculture, okay? So we have some dedicated appraisers that go out there and they verify row crop, orchards, no weeds, just agriculture. So the residential department makes up 62% of the total appraisal roll. For 2021, the total number of protests that were filed was 41,612. 29,952 were residential protests. So if you break that down between the 16 appraisers that I have that defend the cases, they would have had to each hear 1,872 protests by themselves. That's in a 3 to 4 month time frame. So no pressure for them at all. I'm glad you guys caught on to the joke. For 2021, it shows we were 72% of the total protests that were filed. We did online protests this year. We've had them for the last couple of years where people could file their protests online and do the whole informal online. 96% this year was residential. The total was 6,800 and residential heard 6,600.
How's that work out for you, the online? Is that, do
me-
you prefer that or not?
Well, yeah, and I'll let her explain a little bit, but the main thing I want to explain is a property owner, we have all the instructions. When we send out the notice of appraised value, the instructions are on there. And there's a time limit for you to be able to go online, fill out the protest. That is your informal. We'll submit a value recommendation, and if they disagree with our recommendation, then they go to their formal. They don't have another informal with an appraiser here in the office. That's considered the informal. There's nothing in the tax code that says we have to have informal hearings. It's only formal hearings, but we do, because we want to try to get as much done.
Saves us a lot of money.
Of course, and a lot of time, and we get better information, and we can be, nice to the folks that come in and explain things to them. And so the online protest, when it first started, Houston was doing it, and they were very successful. It's hard to get around Houston. So when we first started, we only had a couple hundred, but we're up to 6,000 that are filing online.
Oh,
I think that's gonna be the
absolutely.
way of the future,
So,
is
yeah.
to do it like that.
Now, it is confusing to some people because they get online, they'll submit, their protest, what they want their value as. We tell them what we can do, send them some comparables, and they agree, everything's signed electronically and we're done. If they don't agree, then they have their formal hearing. They already have an appointment date, and their formal hearing, they come in before the appraisal review board. They don't come back in and speak with an appraiser again. The whole point about the online process is to eliminate that face-to-face.
Okay.
So, okay, Crystal, you can
So
explain that.
96%, 96 of our percent were online?
Or residential.
No, 96% of the online protests that were filed were residential.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, yeah. But not 96% of all the
No,
protests.
no.
Oh, no.
Online. I wish that were true.
We'd still be working online protests if that was the case.
I got it. So of all the protests that you received, 96% were residential.
And it's-
4% were commercial. Yeah,
Right.
that makes sense.
Or personal property, commercial. And it's
Yeah,
funny
makes
because it is easier for property owners to be able to do that, but it's a lot more work for us. So it does add to the workload. Not only are appraisers handling the online protests, they're having email protests, they're also handling the informal walk-ins that come in and the formal hearings. So we have to spread out our staff and just hope nobody gets sick because we're in trouble. Go ahead, Crystal.
So this is just an example of a one-on-one hearing that we would have with a property owner, and the evidence that they would bring in to defend their valuation opinion would be any fee appraisals, settlement statements, photos, estimates, and CMAs or information from any realtors. And if they have any sales information, that's something that we can use for the following year. Number of yearly new residence permits, I've got it from 2015 to 2021. It did go down a little bit in 2021. It's back up again for 2022, but I don't have those final numbers yet. But it just gives you an idea that it's about 3750 new houses that were built in 2021. Okay. Permits are taken out. We get them through the city. We receive them electronically. We also drive the neighborhoods that were new for the previous year, and then we get permits from Socorro and Horizon emailed to us. The workload for 2022, so we had 5,313 permits. That includes additions, swimming pools, demolitions, fires, new houses, septics, mobile home placement. This is all that we go and look at. We had 5,591 rechecks. That's when people come in and say that their house is in bad condition, or it was a % complete the previous year. We have to go out and look at that stuff. And then we had 66 T8s. T8s is just a form that we use through mapping that does combinations, splits, and things of that nature when we're working on a neighborhood. So if you break that down between the 13 appraisers that work these accounts, they would have had to do 844 accounts each in a 5 to 6 month period of time.
Do I have a great staff or what, guys?
I don't know how you do it. I really don't.
They're amazing, the work they do.
So the numbers are a little bit different as far as what I had for hearings and what I have for residential, because I have 4 dedicated people who work on land. Land would be all the agricultural field checks that need to be done, new subdivisions that are being platted, and then they work on T8s. So they're dedicated to working on that land portion of residential during this time. During protest time, they do onlines, they do informals, they do hearings upstairs, they do it all. Okay. So this is an example of what the land department would do. This is a platted, this is an unplatted subdivision in 2008. It's 109 acres. This is what it looked like via pictometry in 2008. This is what it looked like in 2011. Okay. So when you look at the stages of development, it started at 1.2 million. It ended up at 72 million. Dinah, don't look at this slide. Sales information, we're a non-disclosure state. I'm sure you guys have heard that before. We don't have access to MLS, so we do deeds. We send out questionnaires to property owners. We use the evidence that's brought in from protest hearings. I have deeds on there twice. They're very important, apparently. We also do internet research, and then we have a couple of subscriptions that we actually get that help us get some sales information that's pretty good. This is just random stuff that my nerdy self thinks is important. So sales information for 2022, the lowest sale that we received was 22,000. The highest was 1.6.
You're saying that was the highest residence that was sold?
that we were able to get.
I know there's a lot
Well, I'm
more.
telling you that there were some that
Of
were sold
course.
I'm sure
3
there
times
was,
Yes,
that.
but we don't
don't
have that
get that.
information.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the problem in commercial and BPP and residential in the state of Texas is getting that information. If it's not published, if they've got a non-disclosure with their realtor,
write that, of course.
they,
We
you know,
all write
so
that
there's
in.
so we're not.
Not in the deed.
More
and it's all-
expensive than that?
Well, mine is, but the answer is, when you do comparables, you can see that the value is substantially higher than a 1.6. I mean, I know of people who have bought houses that are twice that expensive
Yes.
in that year, within that year. So you're saying that that's the highest you assessed?
No, that's
that
the
we
highest-
received.
Because of the
This is the highest sale that I'm going to be able to use to defend the values that we
Because that's the
offer.
only one, that's the highest that we were able to get
Right.
information on
Exactly.
to substantiate. Problem is, we may know something sold for
No, no, no.
2.4 million,
Yeah.
it was
Right.
listed.
Yeah, I know.
But we don't have the documentation to back it up. And we're not allowed to sales chase by state law, and we're not allowed to put arbitrary values if we don't have the documentation to back it up. So it makes it very difficult.
And documentation, you're not going to get because you're not going to get sales
Right,
information.
right. And it's,
So that's
when you
a
get.
catch-22.
Right, and when you get in those high levels, when they're dealing with a realtor, somebody of that caliber that has a house, they have a codicil in there, don't give my
absolutely.
information out.
Absolutely.
So, you know.
And they write into their deeds that it's $1
Well,
plus
these
additional
$10
value.
plus further
Yeah,
consideration.
that's all we write in. It's
Yeah.
$1 plus additional values. I
Yeah.
mean,
We
we'll
may
take-
get a promissory note, but usually when you're at that high level, you don't get promissory notes.
No,
Right. So yeah, this is not the highest assessed property. We have much higher houses, valued houses. This is just the highest sale that we receive.
Okay,
that
so
we
you don't
have.
necessarily use this data to create your value.
No. This is what Crystal likes to look at to say, see what we're missing, because we
I
know
got
that
it,
this
I
is
got it.
low,
I
yeah.
was
So
hoping
if
somebody
Texas
catch it.
was,
Got it.
so let me ask you something. If Texas was a disclosure state, we would be a lot better off.
Yes,
It'll
yes.
never happen in this state.
It won't.
I can tell you, as
won't.
long
No,
as,
and if we had,
Politics in this state
if
will
we had
never allow.
if we had access to MLS, so we would get a lot more information, that would be a lot more beneficial for us.
that's never gonna happen.
But no, and
It's just not gonna happen.
just
If it
really trying
was-
to just burst that bubble.
You're
for
right,
our-
you're right,
If the
but it's
state-
never gonna
if
happen.
the state
This is
gave
why she
even
left me for last.
the authority to do that, then it'll be a different story.
Yeah.
We used to be able to get MLS?
Yeah, years
Are
ago.
we gonna have a state income tax?
2005 is the last, yeah. You know, it's funny because the state tells us we have to be at 95% of market.
Right.
But we have no tools to
Right.
get us the information in the
Right.
state of Texas. And a lot of other states, as soon as you purchase a house, that information goes to the assessor's office. So they're always hitting close to market or right at market, and with not as much work as we have to do. We talk to realtors, we talk to builders, we talk to developers, we talk to finance companies to see what are you financing, what is your risk rate, you know, what is the yield rate, and what is your overall so that we can get an idea of, okay, if they're financing X amount, then this house has got to be worth this, you know.
Is it unethical for us to pose as a buyer and walk in and just ask for a value? I mean, can't we just walk into there are spec houses that are being built that are substantially higher. So my question is
That's the attorney there.
is it illegal for us to just ask a value of a broker or an agent that's sitting in
I
the
mean,
house?
is it legal for an employee of an appraisal
Right,
district?
to walk in and say, well, how much do you want to say?
Misrepresent.
No, they can just, they don't even have to represent it in any way. They can just walk in and say, how much is this
They
house
have to
selling for?
identify.
We have to identify,
Oh, they do have to
So-
identify.
So once you
Yeah.
walk into that building, you have to,
say who we are. Well, our employees
you're
wear
not
a
gonna
CAD
get-
shirt,
yeah.
they have a CAD badge, they
They're gonna
drive a
go-
CAD car.
You're not gonna get a value. No one's
Yeah,
gonna
no.
give
they're
you a
gonna put up
value.
walls. Oh, we don't want to talk to you.
Well, that's okay.
And even, if I may interject, even if we know what a property has sold for 2 years before, they get a tax agent, they file suit.
Of
they come
course.
in, and oftentimes we have to drop the value because of the equity argument. So it kills us.
So what gets me, and this is something that I don't know how we can legally avoid it, but what gets me is it's the big expensive houses that have the means, the resources, but the people who are paying $200,000, they have to pay full value, they get full hit, because they don't have the resources to be able to combat it.
Because they're honest enough to tell us what the
And they're
market
honest enough
is.
to tell us the truth.
And they're saying, well, you know, I want,
It's kind of unfair.
yeah,
It really is.
yeah.
But it's a small percentage, I mean, it's less than 1% or 2%, the amount
Oh,
of
it's
houses.
more than you think.
Not so much anymore.
than you think.
Yes,
Ah, interesting.
yes,
More than you think, Eddie.
yes.
I mean, in certain areas of this town, I would say the median average is probably
1.6.
1.6 million.
Can the state get MLS?
Huh?
Does the state get the MLS?
They get more information than we do.
They do.
The state, because the state does a property value
But
study.
can't they share with us?
Jimmy, you want to answer that one? No, they don't.
Ask for it and put in a open records request for it, and they tell us, well, we're busy right now.
Are you serious? You didn't
Love
open
this
records
state.
on them? They
That's
wouldn't
why I'm
tell
a
you?
proud Texan. Let's do the pledge again. I want to do that. I want to do this pledge over again. Honor this flag.
They'll eventually send it to us, but it'll be after the fact. It'll be a year or two later,
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
and, you know, then we're behind the eight ball again.
You would
so.
think they would want us to,
We have requested in agricultural, when the state sells land, we will request a copy of the sale, and they'll send it to us, but it's redacted. It's all redacted. So we know where it was at and when it sold, but we don't know anything else.
Can I put my 2 cents worth in
Yes,
here
you may,
about
ma'am.
property value study?
Yes, you may.
And I've been looking at what's coming up on the legislative agenda this next year, and there's all this onus placed on appraisal districts to do accurate appraisals. And particularly for residential appraisals, it's driven by the property value study. Because the state comes behind you and with additional information later in the year and goes, wait a minute, that house should have been $250,000 and you only put it on at $200,000. And when they get a low ratio on the state study, the school districts lose money.
Right.
And that's what the state does. So it's the state driving up the really, to my mind, they're doing a big part of driving up the residential property values because they're forcing the districts to really bump those values because the state.
But the
comes behind.
tools that they allow us to use don't give us accurate information to
No,
give
but
us.
you're absolutely right. But also, a lot of the large value commercial facilities and stuff have the money to file lawsuits. And the same way with
Rich homeowners do that,
rich
right?
people like that. So they wind up with the lower values.
Right.
And all of your big bulk of residential homeowners wind up getting their values bumped up over and over again.
Crazy.
Well, this is kind
Sadly
of,
true.
We've got 3 more slides to go.
Sorry.
go ahead, go to the next
I'm
slide.
sorry, we didn't mean to interrupt.
No pressure.
We didn't mean to
Next one.
interrupt you.
I already told her, go to
We
the
were
next
just
one.
mad
Get
at
this
your
one
highest
off.
sale there.
We just
Because we
Get this
know
off.
that's not the highest sale, but we
Get that
got
one
you.
off. There you go.
Okay.
Wow,
So,
480 square.
so the smallest house that we have assessed in El Paso County is 480 square feet. The largest house that we have assessed is 17,820.
Is that apartments too? Apartments?
No, single family.
Just single,
family.
480 square feet for a house?
Yes, sir. It has 6 fireplaces that were flown in from Italy.
In a
This house right here?
480 square foot house?
That was a big
No, the
No.
big-
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm looking at the little one. The big one, I'm already mad at the big one. It's the
How
little
many
one.
fireplaces?
You know what? I waved the flag. I'm done. I'm done.
No, I got you on the big one.
So quickly, this is just an example of us out in the field. The car that has our logo on it, the appraiser measuring the property. Basically, field work, we take the printed card, we use the mobile devices as well. We route the work, we get out there by 9 o'clock, we speak to the property owner. If there's nobody there, we do leave our business card on the door so they know why we were at their property. We use pictometry as well, so if we have no access, we can actually measure this property.
Is that the 17,000 square foot house?
Yeah.
It is not.
No, that house is small.
It is. It is.
17,000
bigger,
square feet's
yes.
huge. Jerry Room is like 25,000.
This is another one.
That's not the 17,000 square foot house.
That one might be.
And this is another example of what we can see on pictometry. Okay, so it's a mobile home with additions.
And you wonder why we would need to be able
That's
to
a
measure
mobile
this?
home?
That's good.
Yeah. You
Yeah,
wonder
so
why we would
the
have to
white-
measure
the
something
white
like
portion is
this?
a mobile home, and then they did
using-
additions.
Yeah, they built on all these little things.
Yeah.
And
Very
you
cute.
wonder, we use pictometry to help measure. You wonder why, well, this could be fenced off with dogs. And our employees are not going to go out there with dogs. You're in the county. And so if they have the big fences around it, so whether it's a 17,000 square foot or 480, if we don't have access, at least with our aerials, we can get an estimation of the size.
So it does help. And in the county, most of the appraisers do take out dog biscuits with them.
Oh my God.
Because it just makes it so much easier. So this is my 2022 forecast. We're still finishing up finalizing values, but the market hasn't changed. The market is still going up, so we assume that there's going to be more of a uptick for next year as well. Just real quick, I did have some people who wanted to stay, so I just stand up real quick. These are some of the people that are out there measuring and.
Good job. I don't know how you do it, but thank you so much for your hard work.
Okay, finished.
Okay, real quick, Eric. How many appraisers do you have in your department?
Appraisers, we have 9.
9, and commercial? 13, okay. So you can see, and residential had 13. all of the amount of work that we have to do in the county with just that staff. And they do it day after day, measuring. Commercial goes out and has to, you saw the big buildings.
how you do it.
They have to measure, they have to count, they measure the asphalt, the light standards, all of that residential, all the different areas that they have to go out, and then personal property going to every single business every year. They're just so talented and so trained.
Dedicated.
Very dedicated. And they're very proud of the work that they do and the communication that they do with the taxpayers to let them know. So,
Talking about dog biscuits, how many dog bites do you guys get a year?
we won't go there.
None.
Very, very few.
There's been one.
More from children than from dogs.
One in the past
Kids
5
bite.
years.
Oh, wow. We're very cautious. We tell our appraisers, if you are unsafe,
Oh,
come back in. Don't go out there. Don't get out in the car. I mean, when I did it, when I was a field appraiser, I've done what they've done. You carried a wheel and I carried bologna sandwiches and you ran like crazy and jumped on top of the
Toss the
car,
sandwiches.
We had one gentleman that was stuck on a light pole that was out there measuring a warehouse out in the county, and they closed the gate on him. He was on the other side and his car was on the other side. They didn't know he was there. They let the night dogs, watchdogs out and closed the gate on him. He ended up on a pole, so we've changed things from the way things used to be done to, if you don't feel safe, don't do it. Come in and have somebody go with you. If you're in an area, El Paso's a great area, but there are some spots that we want to make sure that they go out with somebody else. So we're very lucky. Our appraisers are very conscientious to not put themselves in those. But here's the other side of it. We have to. It's the tax code. We have to go out and look at these. And the code says once every 3 years, but when you've got a market that's volatile, you go out every year and you review your areas every year. So it's a lot of work to do, and they're amazing, and I'm very proud of them.
So my next question, with the amount of volume that you guys have work, why don't we hire more appraisers?
It's funny that you mentioned that.
Our budget.
I'm asking for some additional
Are you really?
staff in our
It's in our
budget.
budget.
Yes, I'm asking
That's in
for,
this new budget.
it's in the budget that you guys
We
have.
can't pass it.
Yeah.
But it's the new.
Yeah, it's the budget. We'll do the workshop in April. April 28th will be our workshop. It's a Thursday. It's the last Thursday of April, which gives everybody plenty of time to look at it. And we are asking for additional staff. 10.
10 more, okay.
I think you're getting into.
Oh, so that's not, yes.
We're just hypothetically.
Hypothetical. Hypotheticals. Yeah.
Could, yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that at the workshop.
Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
you're right.
Thank
She's
you.
right, yeah, she's right.
Thank you, Ms. Hegman. Okay, so. But anyway, my staff, I want to thank them for presentations. I think it's good. I'm sorry the other members were not here because I think it's very important that the board understands what they're sitting on and what we
Oh, yeah,
do.
definitely.
And see what the different departments are dealing with. So thank you. Well, good night.
Is that it?
We're not adjourning. We're not adjourning. We have no
Okay,
meetings.
you guys have a wonderful evening. It was good seeing you.